Welcome to Watch Symposium. I'm Austin. All right, so Dan Friedman left a comment in one of my videos. It was in my watch shopping in Fukuoka video, and in the description of this video, you can see the exchange between he and I. He seems to be making the argument that it's not a good idea to buy a Rolex in Japan, and let's talk about that for a minute, because have I ever said it's a good idea to buy a Rolex in Japan? Well, I may have made the argument that it's a good place to buy a used watch, and I think it is, and I'll tell you why. Because, well, the examples here are really good. So this is a country where I think you could safely buy a watch from the States through Rakuten or Chrono24 from a brick and mortar shop here and be pretty pleased with what you get. The examples are good, and you're not going to get a fake. Well, I mean, the chances are really low you're going to get a fake, because they really crack down on fakes here. And a brick and mortar shop is really not going to be pawning off fakes. One great thing about the shops here is they seem to really want to represent the watch accurately in the photos. So they'll often highlight and really hone in on the details and the faults of the watch. And what they want is they want a smooth transaction, and they don't want a buyer complaining about scratches they weren't aware of prior to the purchase. So oftentimes you'll get photos that really highlight the faults of the watch, which I don't think is characteristic of say, dealers in the States. And I could be wrong. Perhaps they do really focus on the faults of the watch to inform the buyer. But that's something that they do here, and you'll often see a watch and the photos really highlight the issues with it, and then when you get the watch, it's wow, it's surprisingly good looking. I guess those close-ups of the faults of the watch and the scuffs and scratches don't really do it justice, but you're pleasantly surprised. So that's my point, and that's why I think I would feel very comfortable buying from the States from a brick and mortar shop in Japan. Vice versa, I would be more hesitant. Okay. But you're going to probably get a better deal on, say, a GMT, because, as you know, the GMT prices here are pretty much through the roof on the gray market. So, you know, a 16710, 12,000 USD, whereas I think you can probably pick one up for maybe, 9,000, less than 9,000 USD in the States. So on the used market, I think safety-wise and for good examples, Japan is a great place. To get a deal, maybe the U.S. would be a better place. But I think what Dan is talking about is he's talking about buying retail, and he seems a bit confused about things. He states that the high tariffs on the watches that the Japanese government imposes somehow makes its way to the buyer. It's really a moot point, because you can sort of do the figures and realize that buying a watch at an AD here depends really on the exchange rate. And we're gonna do some figures here, and I'll prove it to you. All right, so now he linked the Rolex site in the U.S. Apparently he can see the prices. I can't see the prices. They probably have them filtered, so if you're not looking at it from the States, then you can't see the prices. But according to Dan, BLNR is 8,950 USD. Here in Japan, when I was in Fukuoka, the woman quoted a BLNR, if they had them, as selling for 918,000 yen. So Looking at the exchange rate today, which is 107 yen per dollar, if you were to buy in Japan and pay 918,000 yen, it would be the equivalent today with today's exchange rate of 8,547 USD. So you'd be saving about 400 USD. All right, now let's talk about tax for a minute because this is important. I don't know if she quoted that with or without tax. Now, if she quoted that with tax, you're going to get that money back as a tourist. When you come to Japan, if you buy something over 5,000 yen, like clothes or jewelry, you can claim that money back. And there are rules to it. You have to claim it back the same day. But you don't have to pay tax as a tourist on, say, a Rolex watch, okay? Link in the description to the way that works if you're curious. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to assume that she quoted that figure without tax, okay? If she quoted it with tax, you're going to save even more money. But assuming she quoted it without tax, which is really rare here, usually they quote figures and prices with tax, then if she quoted it without tax, well, you're going to get that money, that tax money that's going to be added to it back, and you're still going to save $400. Now, the price that Dan quotes the Rolex website as having the 8,950 USD, well, that's probably going to be without tax. So you're going to be paying tax on top of that because that's just the way the States does prices. They don't really include that, and I doubt that is including tax. Okay, but what I'm doing is I'm just, for the sake of this argument, saying that that assuming that the USD price he is giving me is with tax, and assuming that the price that the woman at Rolex, the Rolex AD in Fukuoka gave me is without tax, even then you're still going to save 400 USD if you were to buy today. Now, like I told him, it all depends on the exchange rate. And I've seen exchange rates, $1 be 75 yen, all the way up to 120 yen, more or less. And we'll do a thought experiment in a minute. But you're better off buying a Rolex from an AD in Japan if the exchange rate is 103 yen or above per dollar. If it is 103 yen, $1 is 103 yen. If that is the case, then paying for a 918,000 yen BLNR, you're going to pay 8,912 USD, meaning you're going to save $40. And that's assuming that tax is in that price that Dan gave me, which is highly unlikely. Now, if the exchange rate is 102 yen per dollar, and you were to buy a Rolex BLNR in Japan, you would be paying 9,000 USD. So you'd be paying about $50 more. But again, that's assuming that the figure Dan gave me has tax included, and I highly doubt that. All right. So, bottom line, if you come to Japan and the exchange rate is 103 yen or more, you're better off buying that BLNR here. Okay. Now, let's do a thought experiment. Now, I've seen the yen be as weak as about 75 yen per dollar, but let's just round it up to 80. Now, if you were to come here and for every dollar you have, you get 80 yen, then a BLNR at that price of 918,000 yen is going to cost you $11,475. So you're much better buying in the States in that case. But, and I've seen the exchange rate get to well, let's see, the dollar was so strong it was about 120 yen per dollar. But let's just scale that back a bit and say if the exchange rate is 115 yen per dollar, and you come to Japan and you buy a BLNR, then it's going to cost you $7,982, which is far cheaper than the figure that Dan gave me of 8,950 USD. So, what do we know? What do we learn? What have we figured out through this? Well, if you come to Japan and the USD, $1 US is 103 or 104 or 105 yen, you're better off buying here, okay? The weaker the yen is, the better it is to buy here. And the stronger the yen is, the better off you're buying. You are buying in the States. It has nothing to do, like Dan said, with the tariffs. That's a moot point there. And if you're looking at today, okay, which is the 14th of February, happy Valentine's Day, you're better off buying a BLNR, and I'm just using that as an example here. You're better off buying in Japan at an AD if you were to find one, and you can't find them here, okay? So there you have it. Now, Dan he's a really confused guy, right? And it's particularly interesting to see such a confused person trying to alpha mail me. But he looked at the price of the Hulk, which was selling on the gray market. And then he linked the Rolex website for the Hulk, which I think the Hulk sells for about 9,000 USD, okay? And that was somehow like proof that it's better off to buy in the States. Dan couldn't get his head around the fact that gray markets charge more for watches you can't get at AD because they're hot items. So that's just across the board anywhere. I mean, you're going to pay more for a BLNR, very likely, at a gray market in the States today, because you just can't stroll into any AD and pick up a BLNR. And so, of course, the Hulk was the equivalent of 11,500 USD. It would be cheaper at an AD here, but you can't get them at AD, and the gray market knows that, and they put a premium on that watch, and he couldn't seem to understand that. Anyway, thanks, Dan, for your for your whatever that was. I hope you can get it through your head now that Japan's a fantastic place to buy at an AD, and possibly on the second-hand market as well. Again, I will say that those GMTs have shot up in price, and perhaps you're better off buying in the States in that regard. But if you're looking at the AD and you're looking to buy it in AD, well, it does depend on the exchange rate. But as long as it's 103 yen per dollar or more, it seems that Japan is the better place. Thank you for watching. Take care. See you next time.